At the heart of the Joel D. Valdez Endowment is the inspiration provided by the invaluable contributions Mr. Valdez has made over many decades to the University of Arizona and the residing community within the brilliant valley of Tucson, Arizona. Mr. Valdez, a native to Tucson, brought his financial expertise to the University of Arizona after 16 years as Tucson's city manager, which encompassed over 5,000 employees and budgets over $500 million fiscally. It was a natural reallocation of duties for Mr. Valdez to take on the position of Senior Vice President for Business Affairs at the University of Arizona in 1990. But Mr. Valdez brought more with him than the incalculable financial finesse. Joel brought community vision, civic leadership, personal gold standards, and the wisdom that we are all colossally responsible to each future generation.
We want to make sure no one forgets it's Joel Valdez. So we said, what is a great way to honor him? I mean, he already had his name on buildings because he was critical to having so many things get built. But we wanted to do something related to education because we knew that that was an issue that he would appreciate. And we went to the Arizona Assurance Program because we really believed that was a way to help students move forward, and that as they got an education, they would continue to give back to the community. And we felt that was maybe the most important way we could honor Joel by creating basically a foundation within the Arizona Assurance Program, so that a scholar would be named each year, but they would be the Joel Valdez Scholar.
If you're fortunate in your life, you get to meet one Joel Valdez. You probably don't get to meet two of them.
I could always count on whatever he said as being the truth.
He's a very loyal, dedicated person, looking out for your well-being, and everybody needs that.
Once a friend, always a friend, very close, very trustworthy, yet understated. He was very quiet spoken and all, but obviously very, very effective.
Joel always had a voice that calmed the critics and made people believe that Joel Valdez can get it done.
He set an example of, the highest level of ethics and moral code. You knew you could count on what Joel told you. You knew you could believe him. He would tell it to you straight. He would have the facts to back it up. And he did so in a way that was ethically straight and morally upright.
Joel was a homegrown Tucson guy who came out of that Hispanic community, and it not only created respect for Joel, but for all the people from whence he came.
So I've been working now since I was 9, and I'm 73 now, and haven't stopped working.
He liked that, and in later life, he was traveling through Latin America to share his experiences in public life and public servants. He was in Argentina. He enjoyed Argentina a lot. He was teaching in several of the other countries as well. And on the vice versa, he would welcome groups here and lecture to them on the same thing, the role. He loved the idea of being able to promote public service in Latin America, not only here.
He was always, he didn't think just in terms of next year. He always looked in terms of what's going to be there 10 years from now.
All this academic enterprise has to be supported by providing tools so that people can be productive, space, tools, budgets, and so it is a terribly important role.
The campus was very small, so we had to be very creative in terms of how we use that space. And so we went to the extent of even digging underground to create some buildings, and we use the model of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington to be able to do that.
With that said, if you could come up with something more creative, a creative way to get something done that would save the community money, that would get the project done faster, that would do something better, he was all for it, all ears.
He had a lot of very good ideas for energy savings, putting solar panels on, having gas-fired generators. And so as we added more space, our energy bill stayed the same.
We had this magnificent student union, as fine as any in America. We had this wonderfully creative underground facility at the Integrated Learning Center, both constructed more or less at the same time. We tore up the whole mall in order to rebuild this entire core of the campus.
He was not only a good administrator in terms of his administrative responsibilities for his division, but he was also a good officer of the university in that he was looking out for the benefit of the entire university, not just his unit.
When Joel came to the University of Arizona, this place was in some financial difficulty. He had to fix it, and then he had to manage it financially during some very dark times when the legislature was backing away from its support for public universities. And he managed that over a progression of presidents just absolutely beautifully. The financial legacy is every bit as strong as the physical legacy.
That was his greatest challenge, to deal with a budget that was constantly decreasing and using the money that we got constructively and to the best interest of the institution. And he did that exceedingly well.
The thing about Joel is I knew I could count on and believe his numbers.
I want to make sure I don't spend money I don't have. I'm anxious to do important things, but I got to know where the money's coming from. It doesn't come from the heavens, you know. You've got to have a plan. Joel understood that. He shared that kind of conviction, that way of thinking about finance, a way of thinking about building and growing.
There are many, many aspects of the university that just simply would not exist were it not for his creativity and his willingness to go the extra mile.
I hope that the subsequent generations who see this video clip or read about Joel Valdez truly understand how important he is to the ongoing culture of the University of Arizona. It's easy for history to kind of categorize significant players in the course of time. And to put Joel in the category of the guy who straightened out the finances and built the building. He was so much more than that. He cared about all dimensions of the university. He personally cultivated students who became his interns and proceeded through the journey of becoming professionals. As a teacher, that's not his job description, and people may not remember that about Joel Valdez, but he was deeply, personally engaged in all aspects of the university, and he had a profound influence on the history of the University of Arizona.
Because of course he's renowned not only at the university, but throughout southern Arizona and probably beyond.
I've served, had the pleasure of serving, 2 presidents, Carter and Clinton. I have met other presidents. Because of my position as city manager, I was promoted and elected and all those things to different national and regional commissions and committees and associations. So I've had the privilege of being in the White House, in the Oval Office.
High praise is the only kind of description that I can use for the work that he did. He was not only a great contributor to the university, but he did it within the context of the city of Tucson and of the business community. And that's a rare combination to be able to find.
Since I knew him in all capacities, ranging from from a probation officer, through a library director to a city manager and then on to the university and all, I got to see him through various stages of his life where he had to deal with all kinds of people and all. And diversity was important to him. So he made whatever efforts he could to try to make sure that his staffs reflected the community.
One of the great joys and strengths of Tucson is the multiplicity of communities. You don't have just one Anglo community. You don't have just one Hispanic community. You don't have just one Native community. I mean, each of those categories that we try to lump people into is complex in its own right. And Joel understood that. And so what he could do was he could function in all of these communities and help bring them all together, in this case for the good of the university. And so in many ways, Joel wasn't just a great business person, a great budget person, guiding me through that at the university. But he also helped me understand and come to appreciate and embrace all of the different communities that make up Tucson, that make up Southern Arizona. And I think in many ways that, at least for me when I was here, I think that is probably at its core the greatest gift Joel gave to me and the greatest legacy that I think he has given to all the peoples of this region.
I think Joel was one of those few individuals that you run into who really does care about other people. A part of his leadership qualities, I believe, was identifying potential leaders and then giving them an opportunity to succeed.
To say that he is compassionate is an understatement.
Joel Valdez is a man who embraces and cares about people, all people, and he does so with an absolute moral compass that is straight and true.
Those of us contemporaries of Joel's and myself, maybe of similar age and all, see a responsibility in developing leadership and business people, public people, private people. And as a result of that, education becomes quite important to us. So we saw our role as models and always kept conscious of trying to identify young people that we might be able to begin to help and all. And Joel probably did that as well as anybody. And I think he's done a wonderful job.
My wife and I are both first generation. We couldn't have gone to college if we didn't have scholarships.
He'd always tell students that the way that they were going to get ahead was to get a good education, and that was going to not only prepare them intellectually, but also that they were going to be able to do the kinds of jobs that would make them excel.
Joel probably, as much as any other leader in town, appreciates what education can do to facilitate the kind of person that we see in the future emerging.
And being around the country and seeing kids and being able to open doors, man, that's a good feeling.
Here's what's so great about the University of Arizona. It's your university. You belong. Don't worry about the finances. We will figure that out for you. Your job as a student is to get good grades, to take tough classes, and to qualify to get in.
All I can say is that during the career that I've had is to encourage kids to go to school. And education is the key to open the door to the future. And if you don't do that, if you don't take advantage of the opportunities that are there, many of which weren't available when I was going to school. We didn't have scholarship aid, financial aid like there are today. At the University of Arizona, 33% of the students don't pay tuition. It's financial aid. Heck, we were lucky we got $25, There was nothing.
Joel is a man for all seasons. And I think he stood out as a giant among public servants because of his work in government and here and at the university. He's a wonderful family man, and I think he made the university into community part of his family. And I think he's a treasure in Tucson. A memorable person indeed, and it's been my privilege to work with him.
So first, let me say congratulations to you for receiving the Joel Valdez Scholarship. You're obviously a deserving student, and everyone at the university and in this community has high hopes for you. But as you go forward in your life and through your education and beyond, we would hope that you would think about the values that Joel represented and drive those forward. And that is, first of all, honesty and integrity. Dealing with people very directly and honestly throughout your life. The other would be to provide leadership and drive your issues and your passions forward. And then to remember at the personal level to have a commitment and to be loyal to your family, friends, and this community, and then to make sure that you give back to this community and this world. That will move things forward and make this a better place to live.